We are live. You are live. I like how it tells you that. It's very encouraging to start. Hey, folks. Zach Osterman here, Iowa Center, Indianapolis Star. Mike Niziolek, Bloomington Herald Times. This is Mind Your Banners live postgame for Indiana 87, South Carolina 71. I thought a funny game. You know, one that probably
what was the biggest laugh you got?
I'm shutting this down.
That's good.
I'm
That's good.
I'm gonna start doing these. I'm gonna start doing these alone.
good.
I'm glad only one person's
That's
watching
good.
right now. In the aggregate, like a good day for Indiana. They were better almost everywhere than South Carolina. They were much better in terms of offensive efficiency. 5 players in double figures in scoring. Miles Rice had 23. They were 27 of 33 from the free throw line, 8 of 17 from behind the three-point line. Played South Carolina to a standstill on the glass. Mike Woodson talked about only 12 assists on 26 made baskets. I get that, but that's sort of a good problem to have in a game you win by 16, and yet you didn't really feel. You felt like there were moments. I guess the best way to put it for me is it felt to me like there were moments when Indiana opened the door for itself to really just lay the hammer down in this game, and it just never could. Like, they got it up to like 18 at one point in the second half, and you thought they might name their score here. And you said after the game the referees really chopped it up, and that made it difficult for Indiana because there was no flow to the game, and Indiana got whistled for a ton of fouls in the second half. But it just felt like Indiana sort of showed the ability to really bring South Carolina to the brink and then not be able to kind of clear that last hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the game a little differently. I just thought, the game was never in jeopardy, really, especially in the second half down the stretch. I like you said, they outplayed them. Like, look, if you read those numbers, I think you pointed out the shooting percentage numbers after the game: 51% from the field, 47% from three, and 80% free throw percent shooting. Like, you'd take that every day of the week. And I mean, yeah, maybe some of the half court sets didn't look as good as Mike Woodson wanted them, but I mean, like, South Carolina had one Murray Boyles fouled out. The 2 other guys with 4 fouls, they were just fouling all the time. There was no flow to the game in general, so I don't know like how much. I felt that their lack of sort of smoothness on offense was sort of a symptom of the game itself, rather than maybe their failures. Obviously, Mike Woodson was a little disappointed, and his other problem, which they fixed in the second half, was sort of the perimeter defense and sort of some of the. They had 7 3-pointers in the first half, only 1 in the second half. But I thought, I mean, look, I was sort of down on the team in the first 2 games where I just thought it didn't look very good. Whereas this game, I thought they did what they needed to do. I mean, they held the best player, South Carolina's best player, to 2 points, 4 turnovers, and made him foul out. I mean, he was just perpetually frustrated the entire game. And that was
Indiana got him in foul trouble. Like, it wasn't ticky-tack.
Yeah, but
Indiana was going.
I was just going to say, it was Malik Renew, who had a quiet night offensively, but his defense on Murray Boyles was really impressive, and just his sort of attack and found moments to sort of exploit him and try to get him into that foul trouble, and he did. And so I just thought, you look at this game, this is a quality win, 16 points, and I don't know. I just felt like it was a weird. When you watch the game, it was a weird game.
To your point, the efficient or the if you look at the Ken Pom win probability, like, I think that the lowest Indiana's win probability gets in the second half is right at the beginning, and that's 92.4%. So, from a metrics perspective, like, the computers were never worried real time about Indiana losing this game. I think your point is valid that I think, like, on the one hand, if I'm Mike Woodson, I want a team that's got this many weapons, this much depth, this many dangerous players and scoring options to kind of be able to force the tempo of the game onto that game, especially at home, especially when you are dealing from a place of strength. I mean, they were up 11 at halftime, and that was despite the fact that they did lose control of the three-point line. South Carolina hit 7 first-half three-pointers. That was the only reason the game was remotely close at the break. And then they come out in the second half. Woodson kept his bench tighter today, which I thought was notable. Not surprising, but worth noting. And they pushed that lead to 15, 18 points, and that's when you felt like this is when Indiana figures out how to shift up another gear as a team. Now, you can't control necessarily the way a game is going to be officiated. I did think, in fairness to the referees, Indiana had enough defensive breakdowns. Like, a lot of those fouls were coming because Indiana defenders were getting buried all the way down to the rim, and they were trying to contest, but they were in bad positions, and the referees had decided they were going to call it tight. And let's be fair too, if we're talking about, Indiana got whistled for 17 fouls in the second half, which is an extreme number. But Indiana also shot 25 free throws in the second half, which is an equally extreme number.
My frustration with the officials was that it was called too tight across the board. So, I wasn't signaling out that Indiana was sort of...
I think Indiana earned, if nothing else, I don't know if this makes sense, but I thought Indiana earned a little bit with some of its defensive breakdowns, the way the game was called, because the fouls they were committing were at least partly a result of some of their defensive breakdowns. But listen, again, they held South Carolina to 38% from the floor. The only reason South Carolina was over 1 point per possession was because of the free throws themselves. They were 15 of 23, and I guess the threes a little bit too. But even the threes, they only shot 1 of 9 in the second half, 8 of 29 for the game. It was a high possession game, which I thought was interesting. And again, that can, that can sometimes come around in terms of a lot of free throws, a lot of fouls, just the game getting broken up a little bit. I do think if you're Indiana, you look at the complexion of the way you scored your points, and it's a further reinforcement that this team has the potential to realize kind of like Mike Woodson's most optimistic outlook, which is a lot of different guys can score. You can find your offense in a lot of different places, a lot of different ways. I think it's interesting. I know people, clench their teeth when you say mid-range offense in modern basketball, but there are multiple guys on this team that I would trust to take a mid-range rhythm jumper. You've got obviously multiple guys who can create for you. You've even got a guy like Oumar Ballo, still looking for his offense, but guess what? 13 rebounds and 5 blocks. That's what you need from Oumar Ballo if you're Indiana. 13 rebounds and 6 blocks, excuse me. You can go get your offense from Miles Rice or Malik Renew or Mackenzie Mbako. What you need from Oumar Ballo is to be a difference maker around the rim, and he was again here, just the way that he was in the Tennessee exhibition. If you're Mike Woodson, again, I think, you said maybe we're coming at this from different directions the same way we kind of did the Eastern Illinois and SIU Edwardsville games. There is probably some argument for the same sort of assessment, which is, it's an incomplete team, but it's November 16th, and they're showing some really good signs.
Yeah, I do think there are some exceptions. I think the bench has been, other than Troy Galloway, has been kind of a bit of a disaster.
It's always hard with the bench, though, because
it is. But his substitution patterns. Look, I know he wants to get guys in, but I think his substitution patterns in the first half have to change. I think when
I don't think they will.
But I just think he's like the cooler that sits down at the table, and just like everybody's got to get out. He just killed their momentum in the first half. By doing the wholesale changes almost. I just think you can be more strategic. Basically in the second half, that's what he was doing, but he was using less of them. But I don't think there's any reason for it. Why try to make it more of an uphill climb, especially when guys, look, Luka Goody's been struggling basically since the minute he stepped on the floor in the exhibition games. He's just really hard going.
This is the difficulty of a bench is how does somebody like Luke Goody get out of that shooting slump if you don't play him?
I'm not saying not play him. I'm not saying play him with Tucker and Galloway and take Mackenzie Mbako out and Rice out at the same time when they're giving you the best offense. When they're your best offensive options, you take both of them out and you put 3 guys that have not, Galloway's distributed well, but he's not been that much of an offensive threat. 11 points, but 6 of that was at the free throw line. I'm just saying be more strategic, because I don't think what's the argument against it, right? I'm not saying don't play them. I'm saying play them, stagger them a little more, and don't take the guys out that have the hot hand to just get guys minutes because you need to get the minutes. You can pick and choose when you put them in the game. I feel a little bit better.
It's also worth saying, this game is different. He's going to do it the way he does it against Eastern Illinois, because at the end of the day, it's as important for him to limit minutes for some guys and get run for some guys.
I think I don't understand why you can't limit minutes at a just different point.
But if you play a guy for 8 minutes and then somebody says, hey, he needs to go to the bench because if we leave him out there much longer, we're going to risk a muscle injury.
But why not take a guy for a minute earlier and break it up more, and then stretch. I mean, I just don't. I think there's ways to get that. I'm not saying
in that sense, I'm not watching the score table enough to know maybe he's trying to do that in some cases, and the game's just not getting disrupted or stopped.
No, because today it was just like he sent that once the 13-ish, I think it was. He sent 3 guys to the bench, right? That was I mean, that was as simple it was. I think you can do a better job of sort of balancing that, especially in the first half, because like there's some teams like, look, you killed the momentum. South Carolina kind of shrunk what was a double-digit lead. You're able to push it back at the end of the second half. What if you get unlucky and a team goes off with 3-pointers and then you kind of screw your like?
Sure,
I don't see why you risk it. Like I don't see what
my counterpoint is, especially in a game like this. Again, like the Eastern Illinois game, the SAU Edwardsville game. There are some KPIs in games like that are not going to apply when you're playing high major opponents. Especially in a game like this, my counterpoint is, the 3 guys you bring off the bench. Trey Galloway's got to do the minutes. He's got to get his minutes up. Whether he's going to play off the bench or he's going to start eventually, he's got to get his minutes up. He had 22 tonight. That's a season high. Luke Goody, yes, has been struggling. I think you still see some really good veteran moments from Luke Goody.
What was one of them?
Well, there's the timeout when they were having trouble getting the ball in. He had a really good defensive play when South Carolina his defender took him in transition down the right side, and he swatted the ball so that it went off of, I think it was Zachariah Scott's knee, and out of bounds to get Indiana the ball back. And it was basically the end of South Carolina's last push. He still makes some veteran plays, and he's not going to get out of the shooting slump if you're not playing him. And then Bryson Tucker, as a freshman,
I'm not saying not play him minutes. I'm just saying strategically stretch out and don't have guys on the floor that are struggling off the bench at the same time to sort of kill your offensive momentum. Tucker's still figuring things out. He's a true freshman. He has some good moments. He has some bad moments. And like him and Goody on the floor together have not been very good. Would you put that fair? Like, I mean,
I always want to like look at lineup data first. I would agree with that, but I'd like to go on Evan Meyer.
Well, I mean, I don't have the data in front of me. Our analytics people didn't get it to us.
We should have analytics people.
But like, I just feel like there's not like. I'm not saying don't.
Do you
play
think we can make our own analytics?
We need our analytics department.
Like what, I mean, anyone can have their own. We just don't tell anybody our proprietary formula has produced these numbers.
And if you have a formula that determines that they are good on the floor together, have been through the first 3 games, I'd love to see those numbers. But until that's presented to me, I will say that they should not, at the first, after the first 7 minutes, which he's been doing, or 6 minutes, or whatever it is, do these hockey lineup changes and sort of kill the momentum. He's done it almost. The first 3 games have basically done.
He's done it for 4 years.
I know he did last year too. I gotta say, I just don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't understand what's the good argument.
I mean, I do understand it. I understand your argument against it, but I do understand why he's doing it.
Just to play them, but that's not a. That's not a positive. That's not a reason to defend.
Because also, if he plays the same players together, then they're going to get more rhythm together. It may not work. We'll see.
But if it just doesn't work,
you
don't.
You accuse me of being down on this game. You've been hung up on like the lineups in a game that they won by 16 for like 5 minutes. Let's move on.
That's when the game was. You looked up at where's those numbers with the Ken Palm percentages?
They're gone. Where are they?
You nuked them.
Here we go.
They were down to there, and then they went back up there. It was a 20-point swing, 20%.
It's great radio. It was a 12.3% swing.
78.
It went from 91 to 78.7.
So 14-ish.
No, 12.3.
12.3. No.
Yes, because 12 gets you.
Wasn't it 91?
Yeah, 91.
Yeah. So
78.7.
3. Okay, 12. But 12%. I mean, that's still. Significant.
I found numbers for you.
It was the most significant swing of the game.
Well, it wasn't, because the most significant swing has been South Carolina.
After they took the double-digit lead, it was the most significant swing in the game. I don't. Those are your analytics. There you go.
I'm Kim Bomroy.
Mackenzie
Mbako, I think, continues to be encouraging. 17 points, a little bit quieter in the second half. Felt like the offense was moving in some different directions. Felt at times, to be fair, like maybe he could have been a little bit more assertive or involved. But like, it's also hard when you play your first couple high major opponents, the athletic level goes up so much that it's like, well, what do they do? Like Miles Rice got really quiet for a while there after halftime, and it's like, well, this is the first time Indiana's seen somebody that can really take him away. And they've got to go figure out in real time how to get him back, basically. And maybe some of that happened with Mbako. But 17.7 rebounds, 6 of 7 from the free throw line. Obviously, we knew he was a good free throw shooter. But this was the first night that Indiana really needed that, and he hit some big ones to just kind of keep things steady in the second half. And I think if you're Indiana, you just like to see that he's not just scoring, but he's scoring efficiently, and he's also engaged in other areas. He had a couple of really good moments defensively. Obviously, the rebounding is going to continue to be important. How good will he be in terms of the averages and whatever? By the time we get to February and March, we'll see. But I think you are well within your right, if you're Indiana, to continue to be encouraged by the all-around impact Mackenzie Mbako's having.
Yeah, I mean, he's been there. We've talked about this the other day. He's been their best player, and he was in the first half. Miles Rice was right there with them, but I think the only thing offensively, and we haven't seen everybody sort of, even in the starting lineup. We mentioned the bench, but just like firing on all cylinders at once yet. So I think Ballo was really shaky. He's been really shaky offensively, really shaky in the first half. Does not look comfortable. Looks just oddly sort of, especially when he gets the ball in the post. You've mentioned he's sort of been better facing the basket.
He's not a back to, at least he hasn't been a back to the basket player.
And they've tried to get those possessions for him. Just has not looked comfortable. Obviously, Malik had a quiet day today. Woods' thing is we're not going to be team predicated on one player as much as they were, especially down the stretch with Khalil Ware last season. But I think you'd like everybody to. It's been probably too up and down in terms of the performances, wild swings outside of Mbako so far through 3 games. I feel.
Yeah, I mean
that was to your point that the team's still figuring.
And
out.
It's always this is when I say the danger. I recognize. Listen, it's a good problem to have when you have this many talented players. The danger of, or the risk that you have to sort of mitigate of a team like this is, sometimes if you have 5 scorers, you have none. Who does
the ball go to?
Yeah, how do you?
These guys get
what happens? Yeah, what happens when the other team takes away the guy that's been making everything go? Is it how seamlessly can you find somebody else to pick that up? I thought there was a little bit of that in the second half, where again it felt like South Carolina went into halftime and said we have to stop letting Miles Rice beat us, and Indiana didn't lose control of the game by any means, but Indiana didn't click quite into place maybe as fast as it needed to. Indiana thinking now we need to just shift to the next guy, whether it's Malik Renew, whether it's Trey Galloway, whether it's Mackenzie Mbako. They took him away, so now we just go over here, and that's an easy thing to do on paper.
I feel like it's hard to do too when you're shooting 25 3-pointers throughout the half, and it's
that's the thing that also colors that colors this game is the way it was officiated in the second half. It was so broken up. You get games like that this time of year. Officials have been given points of emphasis in the preseason. Everybody's still getting used to little rule tweaks and changes, and this isn't a foul anymore, but this is. There are a couple of funny moments, when the referee was in the way of Cannon Carlisle.
A really good pick.
Yeah, Carlisle was what? I was trying to get the ball. It's what was I supposed to do? But that's the other piece that kind of color. If in a weird way, let's put it this way: if the offense had kept flowing freely, and this was the final score, and it just didn't happen because these two teams shot as many free throws, then maybe we'd feel a little bit more like Indiana played well today. They were good value,
I think the point you tweeted out. I think you said this in the first half, the fast break. They're just not there yet with that part.
They are in moments,
but that's what I'm saying. It's like that flash.
That's all. The thing is that is going to get absolutely killed in a game.
Yeah,
when you have fouls, because when the other team shoots free throws, 2 players immediately go back on defense, and the whole thing is happening on a dead ball.
The best play of the season today was that fast break where Rice was an alley-oop from half court.
It was Carlisle. It was Cannon Carlisle.
Rice to Cannon Carlisle.
Oh yeah. I was thinking
the worst play was also an alley-oop. That ended up being a 3-point made basket that stunned everybody in the arena. No one knew what was going on.
No one.
And so no, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about the where Carlisle looked like he jumped from the free throw line and Rice hit him, and it was just locked in. It's you want to see more moments like that. This game you couldn't because of the second half, but just you haven't seen it in the first 3 games. The fast break hasn't been there.
I think the last thing I would say is, and it is somewhat simplistic, but 27 to 33 from the free throw line. How many times last year? And you weren't here. You haven't been here for maybe the last 6 or 7 years when free throw shooting, 3-point shooting have been a problem. Obviously, 3-point shooting's really good tonight, 8 of 17. I thought shot selection was good. You were encouraged because Miles Rice hits 3, and a couple of those are pull-ups, one's on the catch. You're hitting a different, you're shooting. There's 5 different guys who hit a 3, and you're shooting different types of 3-pointers. So you're getting different, Trey Galloway, something he really liked a couple years ago that he never really quite found last year. He had tonight where he does like basically the pass fake, the defender jumps to help, and then he pulls it back to shoot it. He was really good at that a couple years ago. But like the free throws, just how many times did Indiana make its own life so much more difficult last year because it couldn't hit?
Well, even, you mentioned Ballo.
If Indiana shoots,
they were fouling Ballo, and he was at least splitting the free throws. So
at the end, I think he made 4 straight at the end too.
Yeah, but he went 5 for 9.
Yeah,
so he didn't, go 0 for many times, and so I think that was important too. Just to, you got to give teams evidence that that's not a good strategy to have.
Malik Renew 4 of 5. Miles Rice, Kanan Carlisle, Miles Rice, McKenzie and Baco rather, and Trey Galloway were a combined 18 of 19 from the free throw line. And I said this after the last post-game podcast, but like the thing about free throws is when you make them, nobody goes wild unless it's a late game situation. But
That's not true.
But when
fries are on the line,
I said when you make them,
pandemonium. No, but it doesn't matter. Fries, I'm making them or not making them. Fries are on the line.
But we're talking. That's the other team. We're talking about Indiana.
People are excited about breadsticks last year, not as excited. But.
When you make them, people don't get jacked up unless it's like a late game. This is going to ice the game away kind of situation. When you miss them, it sucks all the air out of the building, and everybody groans, and everybody gets a little bit more nervous, and suddenly, like everyone tenses up a little bit. Indiana shooting 79% from the free throw line as a team. They shot well in the 2 preseason games. Obviously, they got to the free throw line a ton more tonight than they have in the first couple games. That was just the nature of the way the game was called. It's a small thing, but it is a small thing that has been a big problem for Indiana basketball, too often in the last whatever number of years, but certainly was last year. And tonight, this afternoon, however you want to see it, it just felt really important that Indiana had a number of different guys that stepped up there, that hit enough to constantly keep South Carolina at arm's length and then eventually put the game away. And frankly, get you to a place where the margin of victory, I think Indiana's KenPom rating got bumped up from 45 to 32, or maybe it was 39 to 32 after this game. The efficient, we talk about efficiency numbers. There's a big difference between winning this game by 6 and 16, and the free throws are a big part of that.
Summed it up.
There you go. We'll leave it there. That's our second podcast, our second live podcast.
Not many people.
No, I think people are probably watching college football right now. I think they're a little bit more excited. Probably had a little bit less to do this morning.
That's fair.
It was 9 a.m. Yeah. You're drinking your coffee. He's Mike Niziolek. I'm Zach Osterman. Thank you for watching both podcasts today. Thank you for reading everything we wrote around Curt Cignetti's new contract. Obviously, there will be more to come on that score, as well as we will be diving back into game week next week, because the game of the program's history is slightly less than 7 days from literally right now.
That's right.
He's Mike Niziolek. I'm Zach Osterman. IndyStar.com/sports, HeraldTimesOnline.com. There's going to be a whole lot going on there this weekend. Thank you so much for watching, for reading, for listening. We'll talk to you soon.